A leaf may fall without a sound and still stir waves across the surface of a lake. A person may speak no words and yet cause 100 others to pause and reflect inward upon themselves. In this world that favors noise, it is often the loudest who are noticed, the most talkative who seem to hold the advantage. And yet, the ancients once said, "Where there is sound, there is form." But it is in the realm of silence where true energy gathers and condenses. So why is it that some sages throughout their lives never argued a single point, yet when they finally spoke, their words became unforgettable? Why is it that there are those who remain behind the curtain, never stepping into the spotlight, yet hold the strings that determine the course of events? Why is it that a silent gaze, steady and unassuming, can cause even the arrogant to lower their swords? Could it be that silence is not a lack of language, but a more refined form of wisdom, a place where energy is quietly nurtured, where the heart is cloaked, and where influence is hidden away like a great elephant slumbering deep within a mountain cave? There exists a discipline, one never written in any scroll or scripture, transmitted only through the heart, passed in stillness, called the art of concealing power and withholding form. To be present without appearing, to move without seeming to act. But now, in an age where words spill forth too easily, where clarity is used to seize the right to speak first, has anyone remembered when is the right time to speak, and when is silence the truest strength? And more deeply still, how does one gaze without sharpness yet still cause others to bow? So come, let us sit for a while beneath the ancient moon and listen to a wisdom not shouted, not inscribed in ink, but one that resonates silently in the hearts of those who are still enough to hear. Welcome to Ancient Wisdom Awakened, a place where every word is not merely heard, but felt with the heart, contemplated with wisdom, and received in the stillness of awakening. Dear friends, if silence can cause the arrogant to hesitate, if a gaze absent of sharpness can still cause hearts to draw inward, then what truly dwells within that stillness? How is it that one who does not speak, does not appear, does not step into the stage light, can still shift the course of events? Could it be that within the space of no words there resides a truth stronger than all speech? And if so, where does such silence arise from? What is that energy we do not see but sense? And how did the ancients preserve it within their way of being? The elders passed down a simple truth. The path of the wise is not to reveal, but to remain concealed. For what is shown too soon is easily scattered by the wind. But what is held quietly within becomes deep enough to gather strength, to become force, to shape destiny. Kwiguzi once taught, one who knows how to hold silence preserves three things: oneself, others, and the larger position. To preserve oneself is to keep idle words from disturbing the mind. To preserve others is to speak in a way that does not awaken their defenses. To preserve the larger position is to let one's energy remain unformed, yet plant its image in the mind of the listener, soft in tone, yet firm in impact, silent on the surface, yet stirring at depth. In a world of clamor, words are often sharpened into blades, blades that turn unwittingly upon the one who wields them. The ancients had a phrase, when the mouth is shaped, the heart is exposed, and the battle is lost before it begins. But the one who guards their words and nurtures their breath like tempered steel sheathed in silence carries a presence others instinctively respect, even if the blade is never drawn. For the sage, silence is not retreat nor weakness, but a higher form of strength, an energy compressed, held back from its edge, like a spring not yet released or a hidden stream that nourishes the earth drop by drop. It is what the ancients called concealed energy, not revealed in shape, not declared in form, and yet unmistakably felt, as though a deep current is flowing beneath the still surface. Like a mountain that does not boast of its height, yet compels birds in flight to alter their path. like the moon in the sky, never competing with the sun, but becoming the centerpiece of the heavens when night falls. Today, many confuse self-possession with self-disclosure, but in truth, the one who holds true strength does not need to show it. Real mastery requires no title, no declaration. In silence, true energy crystallizes. It may be invisible, but it is undeniable. And as recorded in the ancient texts, those who held the highest positions in the art of strategy were the ones who understood this first principle. To triumph in the world, one must first overcome the inner urge to speak. To master that is to attain the deepest kind of victory. If indeed, to hold one's energy is to preserve the self, protect the moment, and keep the hearts of others undisturbed, and if such silence is not deficiency, but a distilled form of completion, then how did the ancients wield it amidst the raging tides of worldly affairs? In times of turmoil, within courts of intrigue, in the hidden chessboard of strategy, or between conflicts where no swords clashed, how did the wise ones move so that few words would strike true, and soft presence still held the upper hand? Could it be that concealed energy and form withheld began as a technique, but through refinement became a way of life? If so, let us follow the footsteps of those who came before, and listen once more to words that were few, yet echo still, to postures unassuming, yet enough to make others bow. One who keeps silent keeps the moment. In the book of subtle strategy, it is written, "The falcon does not dive at the first sight of prey. Before it strikes, it hovers still in the open sky, fixes on its mark, and only then descends like lightning." To the shallow, silence appears as weakness, but in the eyes of the wise, it is the moment when energy condenses and opportunity begins to take form. Kwiguzi once warned his students, "The one who rushes to declare their intent has already laid their strategy bare before the world. But the one who holds silence still holds the power to shift the game." So it is. Not all who remain silent lack words. Some are simply waiting for the moment when their words will cut through the air like a blade, one that never needs to swing because the enemy has already withdrawn. To silence is when wisdom becomes breath. There was a man who once came to Kwiguzi and asked, "Master, why do you not argue? Why do you never refute the foolish?" Kwiguzi lifted a finger toward the sky where the moonlight slipped gently through a thin veil of clouds. Then he replied, "Does the moon argue with the clouds? It simply shines. Whoever wishes to see it, sees." When wisdom is still ripening, it leans on words for defense. But once matured, it no longer needs to speak, and yet still causes others to realign their hearts. The sage does not fall silent out of fear of conflict, but because they have seen deeply. Truth does not need to shout. It only needs to be present. Like incense rising silently through the night, its scent reaching even those who are not looking for it. 3. To withhold is a kindness, so as not to stir the hearts of others. There was once a minister in the Warring States period, renowned for his brilliance, yet each time he addressed the king, his face betrayed his pride. Not long after, he was dismissed. He was succeeded by an elder official, quiet and unassuming, who spoke little, smiled less, and carried himself with the posture of one beneath notice. And yet each of his words gave the king pause. Some scoffed, saying he was feigning dullness, but the king said, "Because he does not display his talents, I do not feel challenged, and because of that, I can hear my own thoughts more clearly." Silence is not for hiding brilliance, but for sparing others from the unrest of envy, suspicion, and rivalry. The ancients taught, "If you wish to travel far, do not stir the waters." And so, to conceal one's energy is not to retreat, but to let the hearts around us remain undisturbed so we may pass safely through the deepest waters. 4. Few words reach where many cannot. In a secluded mountain retreat, students gathered to ask about the way. One asked about the patterns of heaven, another about military strategy, a third about governing the realm. Kwiguzi said nothing. He simply knelt down and wrote a single word in the sand, stillness. And then he offered no further explanation. That night, the students could not sleep. By morning, only one remained. He bowed and said, "Master, I could not rest." That one word kept echoing inside me all night. Kwiguzi smiled but gave no reply. Because sometimes silence is the deepest sound, and one word offered at the right moment is an entire scripture. The sage does not lecture, they merely plant a seed and allow the flower to bloom from within the listener's own heart. 5. Silence is the sheath of a sword not drawn. In the Chronicles of the Imperial Study, there is a story about a man named Chi Yun, one of Kwiguzi's most gifted disciples. He studied in the mountains for 3 years, and not once did he hear the master raise his voice. When he descended from the mountain, a man mocked him. "What have you learned besides the art of keeping quiet?" Chiun replied, "In 3 years I learned how to hold a sword without ever needing to draw it." Silence is not retreat. It is a blade resting across the back, not unsheathed but sharp enough in presence to halt the step of any who approach too rashly. In a world full of noise, a moment of true quiet can thunder louder than a battlefield drum. And energy, true energy, only grows when it is nourished. The one who knows how to conceal their force can shift the heavens themselves without stirring a single speck of dust. 6. Silence is the final refuge of one who is truly free. There was once a man accused by an entire court, his name dragged through the streets, his honor slandered without restraint. People demanded, "If you don't defend yourself, surely you must be guilty." But he did not argue. He sat, he lit incense, he wrote poems, he watched the lotus bloom. Years later, the court re-examined the case and restored his name. Someone came to offer apologies. He said, "I never lost my name. It was only that the world had not yet grown still enough to see it." His silence was not an effort to win an argument. It was a refusal to let his mind be dragged into the muddy current of public opinion. When a person no longer needs to be understood, no longer needs to defend themselves, they have slipped the final chain that binds most souls. At that point, what was once a technique has become a way of life. Still, yet free. Empty, yet full. Without needing a voice in the mouths of others, because their presence is already woven into the quiet workings of heaven's way. And so it is. Through each quiet dialogue, each still posture, each presence that never sought attention, yet still shone, we begin to see. The silent art of the wise lies not in how they withhold words, but in how they still the heart so deeply that words are no longer needed. But if we stop at analysis, at mere reasoning, then the way remains outside the door. To truly understand, one must have at least once sat still in the middle of the night with no explanation, no doctrine, and felt that there is a kind of energy which never speaks but still reaches far, that there is a kind of person who may never appear, yet whose very absence tilts the compass of your heart. And there is a moment when silence is no longer a skill, but a contact with the deepest, formless root of the mind. Walk with the ancients into a night of old moonlight where no scriptures remain, only breath and a glance. And from that, the old stories begin, not with words, but with stillness. There was a still, moonlit night. Mist lay thick upon the forest, and a young disciple sat beside Kwiguzi, quietly without asking a thing. Only the sound of wind slipping through pine branches and the soft scratch of bamboo brush on handmade paper. Time itself seemed to stop. The oil lamp still burned, but its light no longer reached outward. It turned back inward. The disciple whispered, "Master, is it possible that silence is also a way of teaching?" Kwiguzi did not reply. He simply reached out and gently brushed a dry leaf off the table, then gazed at the empty space where the leaf had once been. Moonlight fell there, and that spot now shone brighter than any other. In that instant, something struck the disciple in the chest. Not pain, but realization. No words were needed, no explanations. Because he had understood, it is the empty space that allows light to appear. It is the place where no one speaks that reaches the place where nothing can be spoken. Since childhood, he had tried to master speech, believing that to speak well was to be respected, that to argue was to stand one's ground. But in that one long silence, under moonlight that felt as though it had lasted for 1,000 lifetimes, he saw clearly. There are truths that drift farther the more we speak. There are wounds that deepen the more we justify. And there are people who can only be reached by silence. No words, no debate, nothing left to prove. This is not surrender. This is the most complete understanding that we are no longer the center, that winning or losing changes nothing, that being understood or misunderstood is merely the surface of the water, but deep below, stillness has already taken root. In that moment, silence was no longer a choice. It was a return to the still heart of the universe, where the source of all sound begins. That disciple, in the years that followed, never held office, never gave sermons. But whenever someone suffered, was attacked, or misjudged, they sought him out. He never explained. He never advised. He simply sat, poured tea, and let silence spread like a veil of morning mist, settling gently over the heart of the other, until they too knew what they needed. It was that which was not said that spoke the most. It was that which never appeared that became the most unshakable presence. And perhaps it is in that very moment, beneath a slanted moon and a silence that spoke nothing, that we no longer need to know who is the teacher and who is the student. We no longer remember whether we are listening or being awakened from a dream long held. Because once emotion has quieted and the heart no longer strains to pull meaning from each word, the way is no longer distant. It is not in the story just told, nor in the teacher's expression, nor the disciple's awakening. It resides in the soft unfolding already happening within the one who reads these words in stillness. No more explanation is needed, no more guidance is required. Only an opening into a vast and quiet field where no one is teaching and no one is left to be taught. There is only a presence, soft. And if you are listening to it now, let it carry you one step further into the place without a name. There are truths that only reveal themselves when no one is speaking them aloud. There are people whose silence unveils just how noisy the world truly is. There is a kind of echo that arises not from sound, but from a stillness guarded faithfully over a lifetime. There is a presence that requires no introduction, no spotlight, and yet whenever they walk by, the air grows quiet, like mist gathering across the ground. And only when they have no name, no appearance, no desire to be more than others, does their presence begin to take root, like silent rain soaking into the earth's foundation, unseen, yet somewhere the trees have already turned ever so slightly toward their light. The ancients left behind no records, no schools, no disciples, no doctrines. They became silence itself, so vast that nothing could obscure it. And when people cease to ask, "What must I say to be respected?" and begin instead to wonder, "Is the silence within me still alive?" then perhaps the way has already passed through in the very breath you did not name. And maybe in this moment, as you no longer seek a conclusion, no longer reach for a nod or a question, but simply read to this point and exhale gently, that is when you are closest to what we call understanding. Not because someone taught you, not because it was passed down, but because in that quiet place, you vanished, and perhaps just touched the place where no one is left to name and nothing remains to be said. When a story comes to a close, it is not an ending, but a quiet doorway opening, leading us into a deeper layer of existence. Thank you for silently walking alongside ancient wisdom awakened, for For sometimes, just a single moment of true stillness is enough to stir and transform an entire life. Ancient wisdom awakened, a place where each word is not merely heard, but felt with the heart, contemplated with wisdom, and received in the stillness of awakening.